Well, our royal editor, Camilla Tominey, joins us now alongside former News of the World editor and PR executive Phil Hall.
And speaking to us live from Buckingham Palace, we're also joined by ITV News royal editor Chris Shipp. So good morning to all of you. Let's start with that statement. He said, "It has become clear to me over the last few days that the circumstances relating to my former association with Jeffrey Epstein has become a major disruption to my family's work and the valuable work going on in the many organisations and charities that I am proud to support. Therefore, I have asked Her Majesty if I may step back from public duties for the foreseeable future, and she has given her permission. I continue to unequivocally regret my ill-judged association with Jeffrey Epstein. His suicide has left many unanswered questions, particularly for his victims, and I deeply sympathise with everyone who has been affected and wants some form of closure. I can only hope that, in time, they will be able to rebuild their lives. Of course, I am willing to help any appropriate law enforcement agency with their investigations." So lots to pick over there. Let's go first straight to Chris Shipp outside Buckingham Palace. And Chris, I suppose we shouldn't be surprised by this public announcement.
Well, Phil, I mean, what a week it's been for the people here ever since that interview aired on Saturday. And I think, as you probably pointed out in that statement there, he said all the things in the statement last night that he should have said on Saturday, you know, providing that account of where he was, why he wasn't there, why that photograph with her might have been fake and all the rest of it. And he completely forgot to mention the victims. He completely forgot to mention the regret that he would have of, like, hanging out with someone who was a convicted sex offender. And what's happened this week is that story's just grown and grown and grown. More charities or sponsors of his various projects have pulled out. Some said to us yesterday, even before this statement, look, we're quite happy to continue giving money for these schemes as long as they change the patron. And I think you got to that point, it was really they didn't have much choice. And the meeting was held yesterday between the Queen and her second son. Prince Charles was also massively involved in this. He might be on the other side of the world at the moment. He's on tour in New Zealand, but being the future king, as some people call him, the shadow king at the moment, this was as much his decision as it was the Queen's. And now we've got the question about the money. What happens about the money? Well, he's not going to get any more of this sovereign grant pot because he won't be doing any official duties. But the Queen has what's called her private income. It's the privy purse income. And she'll still be able to give as much as that as she wants to Prince Andrew. So I don't think we should be worrying about how he's going to pay for his Waitrose bill, his Lidl bill, or whether he shops in the week.
Chris, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Camilla, I wanted to ask you, I mean, the other question that's left here is, was this his choice? Did he choose to step back, or was he, in somewhat, pushed towards that decision?
Well, I think, having spoken to Buckingham Palace sources yesterday, the suggestion is really that he was summoned to Buckingham Palace and the Queen, along with her courtiers, and in agreement with the Prince of Wales, said that it was best for him to step back. But I think, in order to save face, the statement was worded in a way which suggested that he had made the decision. But I think, ultimately, the decision was made for him.
Chris used the term there that he would be out of the public eye for quite some considerable time.
Well, foreseeable future was another expression that I questioned yesterday when I spoke to royal aides, and they wouldn't comment on what that meant and the longevity of his absence from public life. But I would suggest that as he approaches 60 next February, this is really a form of early retirement. I mean, at the moment, with more questions to answer, I can't see him returning to public life for quite some time.
And so, Phil, I mean, for you actually, this is impossible for him to continue because anything that he were to attend would sort of attract the wrong kind of media
Even
attention.
Prince Charles in New Zealand on a tour there is going to be asked questions about his brother, I suspect. The problem is he's put himself into a corner. Even if the FBI investigate, he helps. They say he's got no case to answer. Let's assume that happens. Yeah. He's boxed himself into a corner of this interview because the public have watched him, and what he said just doesn't hold water. He said he dropped his daughter off at the Pizza Express. That's at 4 o'clock. He said, I couldn't have been at Tramp nightclub with this lady. Well, Tramp doesn't open till 10 o'clock. He said things that so glaringly don't stand up. And as a result, I think there will always be question marks about him, even if he's cleared.
As a PR guru, what would you have said had you been involved in the decision to do the documentary in the first place?
Well, I would never have done it. I mean, you know, Representative Cliff Richard, for instance. Cliff was innocent. First time I met him, he said, I'm innocent. But trying to prove your innocence is very, very difficult. You can't do an interview unless you can corroborate what you're saying. What Cliff did was allow myself and his legal team to investigate the allegations against him and prove they couldn't have happened. He was accused of assaulting somebody in a room which didn't exist at the time. You know, he was at this particular public event, he had 4 police officers in all the time, so he could not have committed the offence. What Andrew did was go out and make a statement with no corroboration, nothing backed up, no independent witnesses. And one of the questions I'm asking at the moment is, where's Ghislaine Maxwell? She seems to have disappeared. Why isn't she supporting him?
Well, I mean,
there's a lot of question marks.
And there's a civil case going on in the US now against Ghislaine Maxwell, and so that then created suspicion around her whereabouts. We understand that the Duke of York is being named as a non-party to the civil proceedings over in America. There's an FBI investigation ongoing. The Telegraph, my paper, has reported this morning that a summons may be imminent.
So explain where she fits into the picture,
well,
who she is.
Ghislaine Maxwell is the daughter of Robert Maxwell, the former Mirror, and she is accused of being the lady who basically groomed Epstein's victims and trafficked them. Virginia Roberts has accused her of being complicit in what she alleges to have been this sexual encounter between her and the Duke of York. And I think, building on Phil's point there, what's difficult is now that he's done this interview where he's been extremely specific, it's very easy for journalists to come and have a look at every aspect of what he said and unpick these alibis. So we have the Daily Mail this morning reporting Sir Thomas Harris, who was, I think, the UK's ambassador to America at the time, 2001, that Miss Roberts alleges that this sexual encounter took place. In the interview and throughout the entire episode, the Duke has insisted that he was staying at the British consul on that particular night. But not only have the Daily Mail spoken to the person who was running the show there, and he doesn't have any recollection of the Duke staying, and has pointed out it would have been put in the court circular had he done so, because it's quite an official thing to do. There were also contemporaneous news reports of the time saying that the Duke did indeed spend one night privately. We have 2 victims, not just Roberts, but another girl who alludes to this scene that apparently unfolded in Epstein's New York mansion, where Prince Andrew was presented with the spitting image puppet by Ghislaine Maxwell, and that's when he had girls sitting on his knee, and when Roberts alleges that there was an assault. So all of these alibis are going to be poured over, and not just by journalists, but by the actual authorities investigating in the US.
This is obviously damaging for the royal family, embarrassing. I was thinking about his daughters, his immediate family, and how this impacts them. You know, Beatrice, newly engaged. We saw Eugenie's wedding, very public. She'll be thinking about her own wedding plans. Will they have to change?
Holly, I think sadly as well, I think this weekend the Sunday papers will have another go at this story, and you know, certainly my sources are telling me there are other stories out there and people coming forward, relationships he's had. So I don't think it's over yet. I think there's a way to go, and you're right, for the daughters in particular, you feel very concerned about it.
The irony here for the daughters, especially Beatrice, is that they are a testament to the Duke and Duchess of York, and I don't think anyone's faulting him actually as a father and as a supportive ex-husband to Fergie. On Beatrice, I spoke to somebody close to the Duchess who said, look, it was always going to be a low-key affair. I think it's going to have to be. I don't think there's going to be any public appetite for a huge amount of expenditure to be publicly splashed on this wedding, which is unfortunate because Princess Beatrice is actually a really sweet girl. With the Pitch and Palace initiative, what's the future of that? Again, this is a shame because it's a great thing. It helps young
so
entrepreneurs
people,
in a kind of Dragon's Den style scenario. Is there a role for his daughters to play in that, even though they don't have a formal royal role? And also, I think, reflecting on the Queen, I mean, what an annus horribilis Mark II this has been. The Brexit fiasco, all of the problems that they've had with the management of the media around the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. She's there last night giving this award to David Attenborough. She is 93. I think, you know, this morning viewers and the wider public probably couldn't fail to feel sorry for her in all this.
Well, I mean, we should state that, you know, that he has categorically denied any wrongdoing. Just finally, Phil, and from a PR point of view, what does the royal family do now? What do they have? I think
they've done the right thing by by taking him out of the limelight, carrying on. I mean, it's always been her duty, isn't it? It's always what she puts first. And I think the Queen will carry on doing her duty, and I think Andrew's gone. I don't see ever coming back.
I mean, by
very
getting rid
difficult
of
for him, even if he's cleared, as I said, the suspicion over him because of the way that interview played out is not going to go away.
Just briefly, I know that Buckingham Palace were concerned that this scandal had formed a part of the ITV general election debate on Tuesday night. You know, it had come up there. Actually, by removing Prince Andrew, the monarchy, and it's very good at doing this and has been historically, is protecting itself.
He said in his statement, "I'm willing to help any appropriate law enforcement agency with their investigations if required."
Well, that's changed, isn't it? Because in the interview he said, as long as the legal advice advised him to do that, now he's going to do it.
Does this mean
if it goes to America, you could get arrested?
That's what I was about to say. Does this mean that for the first time we're going to see a member of the royal family interviewed by the FBI?
I think we are, but I think it'll happen in this country. I think they'll invite him to come over here, just as in fact recently happened with the diplomat's wife. Invited the police over to America to interview her, but wouldn't allow her to come back.
There's a legal argument around that, but people have concluded in recent times, a lawyer particularly was quoting the papers saying no. And equally, if you've spoken to a journalist for an hour on primetime telly, you can't then not speak to prosecutors.
All right, thank you both.
Thank you very much.